between the Australian women's cricket team and the New Zealand women's cricket team, but it was the Indian women's cricket team that perhaps was the other team that had a lot of interest in that match, and that's because the result of this match was to determine India's fate in the T20 World Cup going forward. And it's not good news for the Indian women's cricket team. For Harmanpreet and co, well, it's a mountain to climb from here, as the desired result for them in this match between Australia and New Zealand would have been that Australia got beaten by New Zealand. However, it's the exact opposite of that that's happened, as a result of which India have a mountain to climb. The only good thing, if there was any silver lining for the Indian team in all of this, is the fact that New Zealand were given a hammering by Australia, and what that has done is that New Zealand's net run rate has taken a significant hit, so much so that Pakistan have now moved into second place and New Zealand has slipped to third. India continue to be in the fourth spot as far as this particular group is concerned. Firmly on top are the Australian team. Are there any teams that have been eliminated yet? No is the answer to that. All five teams continue to remain alive in this particular group. But what does it mean for the Indian team now that they need to do going forward? Are their chances slimmer than at the start of the match? Yes, perhaps chances slimmer now of India to finish in the top two. Why is that? Let me explain you the scenarios as far as the Women's T20 World Cup is concerned. Now, what this result means for the two teams that played the match, let's first look at that. Australia firmly on top, as I was saying. India unmoved in fourth position. But what is it that it means to New Zealand? From second, they've slipped to the third spot. But look at the two games that New Zealand have as compared to India. India are left with 2 games just as New Zealand, so both teams can actually finish with 6 points, but the better chances with a better run rate are that of New Zealand, because you look at the next two opponents that they still have to play against Sri Lanka. India also have to play against Sri Lanka, so there the two teams are exactly the same. However, their other game that New Zealand have to play is against Pakistan, so that gives them a better opportunity than India to finish at with a much better net run rate. However, you look at the second opponent that India have, it's the mighty Australians. You don't have a good head to head with Australia. Yes, you've beaten them a couple of times here and there, but India's chances firstly of finishing with 6 points become harder. Secondly, with a better run rate as well, that also gets a severe blow over here, and right now the Indian team will be worried whether or not they can feature in the top two, whether or not they can qualify for the semi-final. Now, what is it that the Indian team will hope going forward? The tournament is not done for them yet. They still have a couple of days where a couple of results can go in their favor, so much so that they finish in the top two. But for that, you need Sri Lanka to beat New Zealand, or you'll need Pakistan to beat New Zealand. Now, the better chances, I believe, are of Sri Lanka beating New Zealand, because Pakistan beating New Zealand, well, it's a 50-50 contest, I would say. But the more likely between the two teams to beat New Zealand, if you ask me, do look Sri Lanka at the moment. It's the venue as well that could benefit the Sri Lankan team going forward. That is what the belief is right now. But going forward, this is what India need. India can still finish with 6 points. So can New Zealand. Sri Lanka, by the way, can finish with 4 points because they've lost 2 matches. However, the fact that these teams have to play amongst each other, well, this is what makes this group very interesting. So nobody is eliminated yet, because India could also finish with 4 points. Let's not forget, because if India get beaten by Australia, however they manage to beat Sri Lanka, so 2 wins for them, they finish with 4 points. New Zealand can also finish with 4 points. They have 2 right now, but they too can finish with 4 points, because if they get beaten by Sri Lanka and manage to win against Pakistan, then they will also have just 2 wins against their name. So there are 3 teams that can there are 2 teams that can finish with 4 points as well. If this is how things are to go by, Pakistan, things look unlikely that that they finish with 4 points because of the quality of opponents that they have to face. They still have to face Sri Lanka. They still have to face face New Zealand as well. So tougher opponents, Australia and New Zealand, the two teams that have one win. New Zealand have one win at the moment, Australia with 2 wins. So Pakistan, chances of them finishing with 4 points, well, mathematically that can happen, but for practical purposes it looks difficult. In fact, they can also finish with 6 points, but if they were to finish with 6, then New Zealand can only then manage 4 points, and that too can happen only if they beat Sri Lanka. So this is what this particular groups look like, what this group looks like. For India, it's not a desirable result. They needed Australia to lose this match. Now, like I said, it's a mountain to climb for the Indian team. So that's the scenario. A couple of very interesting days ahead. And also, by the way, let me also, while I say this, let me cross-check this as well, because New Zealand will know exactly what they will have to do, because India would have played their last match of this group stage, and that will be against Australia on Sunday. It's the following day, on the 14th, when New Zealand will be playing against Pakistan. So they get an additional day to be able to figure out how many runs do they need to score, or how many wickets is it that they need to take in whatever time, what stipulated time it will be. They will know the exact equation going into that match. This is given India are to beat Australia. That is when New Zealand will need, or that extra time will benefit New Zealand. Right now though, it looks like it's the New Zealand team that has the clear advantage because of the quality of opponent that they have to face. India, well, you could have said the same for them had they not to play Australia, or if they were not to play Australia in a couple of days time. But what can India do right now? Well, to ensure that you are in the right zone, you do the basics right, you ensure that the mood around the dressing room is good, and you give yourself a good boost right now. You need a big win against Sri Lanka tomorrow. That is what the Indian team, they won't perhaps be thinking about the match against Australia, because you know it is a difficult result to get. However, it's the match against Sri Lanka that becomes the key for India. If there is any sort of pressure that India are to put on New Zealand, because New Zealand will probably not have their feathers ruffled if they are to win against Sri Lanka, because they have Pakistan the following day after India play Australia, and that I'm sure, if you ask me, will not give them or not take their sleep away. So it's New Zealand who clearly look like the team that have the edge right now. India are in a bit of trouble at the moment. In 24 hours time, when India plays Sri Lanka, perhaps the picture becomes clearer. Until then, I'll take your leave. In case you haven't subscribed to Sports Today, do so right now. Tap that bell as well so that you get notified every time we go live and have an update for you.